How's it going, people? Simon Slabby here, and today we are going to be looking into Zaros and his minions. In particular, today we're going to be focusing on the one and only Nex, as well as some of her most famed followers. Not a lot is known about Nex's activities throughout the histories, although she did participate in rather large battles under Zaros' name. So, let's get into a bit of Nex, shall we? Power defines Nex. Even the gods of Gielinor stood alert when her name was said in hushed tones all those centuries ago. Her name is chaos and oblivion personified. So powerful was she that the gods, despite all their troubles, pooled their resources to stop this force of nature in its tracks. The battle could only end in a stalemate, however, an unstoppable force colliding with an immovable object. Though Nex wasn't defeated, she was weakened and imprisoned, her powers blunted. But, with her strength drained of its original ferocity, Nex is still unmatched within the God War's dungeon. Nex is not alone in her prison habitat, however, though. At the four corners of her chamber stand dedicated servants, who have formed a symbolic relationship with their master. Her servants are incredibly powerful mages, each a master of their respective element. They are Fumus, breather of smoke; Umbra, caster of shadow; Crua, drinker of blood; and Glacies, master of ice. Nex's elemental army tend to hide their true appearances beneath daunting, evil-looking masks, while their robes give an indication of the element they're attuned to. Nex will do all she can to protect her servants when battling deep within the confines of the ancient prison. They repay the favour by fighting with their lives to protect their all-powerful master. Vanquishing one mage after another, though, is said to severely reduce Nex's unearthly powers. So this next bit is part of a bit of more history that has been followed from Nex. First part was a bit of a statement of her state now in present day. So let's go into a bit of her history back in the Second Age. Following Zaros' downfall in the Second Age, the Majara Azanadra was defeated by the armies of Zamorak and Saradomin. He was imprisoned inside the Great Pyramid of Jeldracht. Before his imprisonment, however, Azanadra was working at Sentistan to re-establish contact with Zaros. The other Zarosians were working to secure the area around the Majara ritual site to gain the upper hand. The leader of those Zarosians was Nex. Gaining even more power whenever she battled, Nex was considered unstoppable. The forces of Saradomin were eventually able to imprison the powerful Zarosian army around the beginning of the Third Age. After a great amount of effort and sacrifice, they managed to lead Nex and the Zarosian army into a large ice cavern, and they then attempted to enchant, and in turn ended up freezing them in a deep sleep. Afterwards, the Saradominists ended up building a large temple over the top of this giant cavern. This temple was known as the Temple of Lost Ancients. Many years after that event, a flock of Aviantes were ambushed by an army of demons while transporting a newly created godsword through the mountains. Because of their small numbers, they were forced to retreat into the temple. Eventually, reinforcements arrived from each side and the battle grew. Thus, the Battle of the Godsword began. Much later though, Saradominus priests, one of them being Ashalat Race, was approached by a mysterious figure who spoke of Guthix. He told the Saradominus priests that Guthix was the only god who could end the chaos and prevent the war. The priests abandoned the cause of Saradomin and, in turn, became followers of Guthix. Their new leaders taught them the ways of druids, including an ancient ritual that had the power to awaken Guthix himself. The priests and their leader performed this ritual, but the result was unexpected and equally devastating. The priests accidentally reopened the prison, releasing Nex. Their leader, who had taught them the awakening ritual and the ways of the Guthix, revealed himself to be the one and only Sliske, a Zarosian Majara. Due to the length of the enchanted sleep, however, Nex was not at full strength. Despite this, she quickly laid waste to the numbers from all sides. She was rapidly gaining power, and soon she would be at full strength once again, for the first and last time in history. All sides stood together, and, after an intense battle, managed to seal Nex behind a massive frozen door. When the God Wars dungeon was reopened to the world in modern times, the number of adventurers that entered it seeking the God Sword had an effect on the prison of ice. The adventurers had ventured inside the God's chambers and found pieces of the key to the sealed prison, and adventurers can now descend to the depths of the prison to do battle with the one and only Nex and her immense army. So upon entering the God Wars dungeon, and upon killing Nex, if you are lucky, you will actually receive a book from Nex. This book is known as Nexus Followers. It gives you a brief insight to her main followers, Torva, Pernix and Virtus, as well as a little bit more information on Nex herself. However, no one actually knows who wrote this book, as it's told from a bit of a third-party perspective, and it also mentions Lumbridge, which was known to be founded in the late 4th Age, long after the God Wars of the 3rd Age. Zaros' passing, and when Nex was in an enchanted sleep, it would most likely have to have been written during the 2nd Age, when Nex was still active, or at the very least, the 3rd Age, when the events of the God Wars disturbed her from her sleep. So, let's get into it then, the Book of Nexus Followers. Shortly after Zamorak became a god, a crusade radically changed the history of Gielinor. It was a crusade to rid the world of anything and anyone relating to Zaros. This resulted in the burning of books, buildings, and those with ties to Zaros who refused to kneel at the boot of Zamorak. Nex was at the peak of her power at this time, and it took the power of 4 gods to imprison her and guard the seal. The gods couldn't even kill her, and her memories of Zaros could not be erased. So, in turn, they lay buried and hidden in the vault. Nex was arguably the most powerful of Zaros' generals. Her strength lay in the priority she gave to thought and planning. This informed her choice of elite warriors, while other generals chose brute force of demons or the undead. Nex, however, chose humans. Though weak in body, they were large in number, and they had the ability to think quickly. As Nex lay in solitude, her mind often drifted to the most loyal of her human servants. They had worked their way quickly into her elite ranks. Torva started from humble roots in a small village. He single-handedly turned away a pack of Ripper demons, while his family and neighbours lay dead around him. Even when Haziel, the Majara, grew impatient and decided to complete the job himself, Torva showed no fear. Nex noted this, and chose to protect Torva, and then trained the human in melee combat. Pernix was a mystery though, even to Nex. Their first encounter was at the steps of Vigora's sunken fortress, where Pernix openly challenged Nex to battle. He hoped to save his village if he beat her in combat. Pernix moved swiftly, jumping from parapet to parapet, firing his bow while moving. Nex had to run to keep up with her target, the first time she could recall that ever happening. A loose battlement caused Pernix to stumble, giving Nex the opportunity she needed to strike. But somehow, Pernix actually dodged her blow. Again, something that rarely ever happened to Nex. In sheer admiration, Nex offered to take him under her wing. While Pernix spoke little, he had a keen eye for prey and would often return to camp with an enormous creature in tow. Another of her followers was Virtus. Virtus was attuned to magic from a young age, and he taught himself to siphon from a magical rift in the swamps of Lumbridge. The volume of magic he took in from the area was immense, drawing unwittingly from a world that was connected to Gillinor. The transfer of magic drew the attention of Zaros, and Nex was sent to investigate this. It was here that she quickly recognized the young man's potential. In Nex's service, Virtus did not use his magic solely for combat. He mastered all arts, teleporting anyone who was willing just by picturing them in his mind. He was recognized for the many he saved, while his enchantments protected even greater numbers. None of these three mighty warriors fell in battle. All of them died as old men, as mortals. Even in their last days, they fought for Zaros. And Nex honored them by designing the armor of her armies based on those worn by the mighty Torva, Pernix, and Virtus. So that is pretty much everything on Nex and her special followers. There's not a lot of information on Torva, Pernix, nor Virtus in any great detail, although it is believed Torva may have participated in the attack against Ardone with his zeal. But no concrete evidence at the moment. So, that is Nexus Followers, one of the mightiest generals to exist, and one of the main generals of Zaros himself. And even today you can go in and fight Nex, and one-on-one is a very, very difficult battle. Nex is a mighty, mighty foe, and she's not even at full strength within the God Wars dungeon. You can only imagine how immensely powerful Nex once was. So I hope you all enjoyed that. Until next time people, I will catch you all later. Have a good one.